Hey guys, welcome back or welcome to my YouTube channel. So as a student, it is almost inevitable that you're gonna have to at some point sit down and study for your exams, your tests, your coursework, presentation, something or the other. So since study sessions are something that is going to be a regular part of your life, in this video I wanted to talk about 15 different things that you can do to get more out of your study sessions, and in other words, to make them more effective and efficient. The first one is having a clean and distraction-free workspace. As we all know, the human memory capacity or the working memory is severely limited, meaning that we can only focus on about 4 different things at a certain time. That also means that if we're having a lot of distractive items in our surroundings, our study sessions are likely to be longer and less productive. So start off by clearing your desk, getting rid of anything that you might not need, and then focus solely on the task at hand. Once you've done that, we move on to planning your study session. Now, planning your study session is vital because if you do not know what you want to study when you sit down, it's going to take longer for you to get started and may even leave you feeling unmotivated. Planning your study session will help you know exactly what you want to do, will help you get started and keep you motivated to achieve your goal. Next, you can also break down larger chunks of information or study material into smaller bite-sized pieces. We're essentially using the divide and conquer strategy here. So you might have a chapter that is too long, and that might seem quite intimidating actually to start off with. So instead, you divide that into smaller chunks that you can digest in one sitting. It makes it much easier to tackle smaller bite-sized areas as opposed to trying to do everything all at once. It will also leave you feeling more productive, meaning that you'll feel better about the study session, making you more likely to study more. Now that you know exactly what you're working on and you're ready to get started, have exactly what you need. So before you start your study session, keep the books, keep the stationery that you're going to need throughout the study session out there for you so that you're not getting distracted halfway through rummaging for things that you need. This is more of an optional one, but you can also set the scene. Now, what I mean by setting the scene is things like playing a playlist or having a favorite scent. Like personally, I have the same study playlist that I've been listening to every time I study since year 12, and so my brain has started to associate that kind of music, which is more like lo-fi jazz beats, with the action that I do, that is studying. I also have a favorite scent that I use every time I have my study session, which is a bit of lemongrass and peppermint mixed together, and it's the same kind of Pavlovian classical conditioning that's going on. Your brain's associating the music or the scent with the action, making it easier for you to get into a flow state. So next, now you've started your study session, it is time to use active recall techniques. So active recall is the process of actively trying to remember something from memory as opposed to just reviewing it passively through rereading or highlighting. So the different ways you can use active recall in your study sessions can be from brain dumping, paraphrasing, summarizing the topic that you've just learned, pretending like you're teaching someone else, and finally creating a visual kind of mind map or a diagram to remember everything that you've just learned. So you may have often heard that you should use spaced repetition and review. So spaced repetition is essentially reviewing the information that you learned after some time has passed. Not only does this strengthen memories, but because memories have the tendency to decay if they're not used, this also shows you the gap in your knowledge. So maybe you learned a piece of information in your last study session and you find out that, oh, now that you've sat down to review it, you actually cannot remember it. That is fine. Do not beat yourself up. It simply means that maybe your memory wasn't stored strongly enough, or that you simply need to go over it to strengthen it so that you can remember it the next time. Spaced repetition also overcomes the forgetting curve. Now, if you've learned about the forgetting curve, it's basically a diagram showing how your memory decays once it is learned if you do not recall it or retrieve it again. Essentially, our brain is a very resource-intensive organ, so it does not want to keep any memories that it's not using. So if you don't use a piece of information that you learned, it is very likely that it will be forgotten if you do not review it. Reviewing is equally as important because you don't want to go through an entire study session and then realize that you weren't even paying attention. So reviewing is helpful. It shows you exactly what you've achieved in the study session. You can review by covering up your notes and writing down everything you can remember, or quizzing yourself using online quizzes or doing test papers, for instance. Next, you can also utilize technology. I know in my previous video I told you to throw your phone out of the window, but technology, as much as it can distract us, it can also help us. So for instance, I used an app all throughout my A-levels. It's called Flipd. It's like a study timer. You can track your study sessions, you can tag them by different topics that you're covering or by different subjects that you're studying. It also provides you with a handy progress report at the end of each week, which tells you how much time you spent studying a certain topic. You can also track your progress in terms of how much you've studied a certain topic, or how much you've studied or how long you've studied for a certain subject over a given time period. It is really handy. It also gives you music that is built in, that is not designed to distract you. It also has a mode where you can turn off multitask. So if you click off the app, it actually terminates the timer, meaning that you're forced to come back to the app. You can't just scroll around on your phone, and I think it's fabulous. There are many other apps similar to this out there, so make sure to check it out and find out what works for you. Next is keeping hydrated. I cannot stress how important water is for our bodily functions, and not just bodily functions. Water is vital for our memory, for our cognitive functioning as well. So proper hydration ensures optimal blood volume and circulation, ensuring that your brain gets the oxygen that it needs to function. It also maintains electrolyte balance. It is essential for the production and regulation of neurotransmitters. Proper hydration ensures that metabolic waste from our brain is removed, because the prefrontal and the frontal cortex, this area right here, right behind our forehead, this is associated with higher cognitive skills like memory and reasoning and problem solving, and that is the area of the brain that is doing the most heavy lifting when we're studying. So it also produces a lot of metabolic waste due to the processes that it undergoes. And so ensuring proper hydration means that the waste is removed optimally. Keeping hydrated is also important for maintaining mental clarity, preventing brain fog, stabilizing mood, and regulating emotional well-being. So I hope I don't have to tell you again, go drink some water. Next, Rome wasn't built without taking breaks, so take some breaks, okay? As humans, we can't maintain peak focus for longer than in bursts of 45 minutes, after which our focus and our attention declines, and just generally the kind of quality of work that we produce might not be the best that we can do. So taking regular breaks essentially acts like a reset button for our attention and our cognitive abilities. Taking regular breaks will also guard you against burnout and feelings of fatigue at the end of the day. Next, the human mind is prone to distractions. Tell it to not think of monkeys and guess exactly what you're thinking about. So what do you do when you're in the middle of the study session and your brain starts giving you all these tantalizing thoughts about going on social media or window shopping? Like, whose side are you on? If you've ever done meditation, you may have come across the trainers telling you that, oh, you should think of your thoughts like clouds. You acknowledge them and then you let them go. That is exactly the way I want you to think about your distractive thoughts. So think of the thoughts that are your distractions as clouds. Acknowledge them, and instead of letting them go, because distractions tend to be really, really captivating, I would rather encourage you to write them down somewhere. Tell your brain that, oh, I would really like to do that, but I'm kind of in the middle of my study session right now, so I'll come back to that in my break. Promise to yourself that you will yourself indulge in your distraction, but not right now, during your break. Chances are you might have lost interest by the time you actually come to acting upon that distraction during your break, which is fine. And if not, you can now scroll through Urban Outfitters without feeling guilty about it. Next, reward yourself for meeting your study goals. Treat yourself to sweets or like an episode of a show you really like after you've finished your studies for the day. Not only does this positively reinforce your brain to find joy in the act of studying because you get something really, really nice after that, it also keeps you motivated to finish your study session, to meet your goal, so that you're not guiltily indulging in those pleasures. Next, comparison is the killer of joy. You might find people boasting about how they only need to study an hour, or on the flip side, how they need to study 10 hours a day. I'm guilty of it. But do not compare your study sessions to anyone else's. Some subjects are more demanding than others. For instance, you might spend a lot more time learning an entire language like Spanish or French or Japanese or Chinese as compared to learning the 5 P's of business. Is it 4 P's? 3 P's? I don't know. It's been too long. So you may find that you need a lot more time dedicated to learning an entire language like Spanish or French or Chinese as compared to maybe going over a topic in psychology or biology or doing some exam questions. Every subject has its own subjective requirement of how much time you should dedicate to it. So just because someone studied for 10 hours doesn't mean that your 5-hour study session is actually anything to be less proud about. Therefore, more time dedicated to studying does not mean that the study session itself would have been more productive or the person themselves, they're more dedicated to studying. Another way to keep yourself motivated and get more out of your study sessions is by studying with friends. I know it can quite easily lead to distractions and going off topic, but studying with friends is actually really helpful because not only can you help each other, you can explain complicated topics to each other, and also it just reinforces solidarity. It tells you that you're not alone, you're in the same boat with them. Furthermore, if you need help, do not be afraid to reach out for help. As the quote goes, the man who asks the question is a fool for a moment, the man who doesn't is a fool for a lifetime. Do not be a fool, just ask the question. Asking people for help does not mean that you're giving up, does not mean that you're not independent anymore. It just means that you're refusing to give up. And last but not the least is take care of yourself. Because as humans, nothing that we do is done in isolation. The only way to ensure that your study sessions and your studies itself are the best they can possibly be is by ensuring that you take care of your physical and mental well-being. Maintain good nutrition, get enough sleep, drink enough water to maintain your physical health. Also exercise regularly because it has shown to boost your mood. You can also have a look at my previous video in which I go into more depth about the importance of sleep and nutrition on our brain. The different ways that you can take care of your mental health is by journaling, meditation, engaging in your hobbies, socializing with friends, going out in nature, as it has also been proven to help reduce fatigue, help promote feelings of well-being. So these were my 15 tips on how to get more out of your study sessions. If you want a more in-depth video about some of the more specific study tips that you should be doing, check out this video in which I talk about 6 different things that you should be doing to make your study sessions better and to get more out of your study sessions. I hope you found this video helpful, and up until next time, happy studying, take care of yourselves. Bye!